What's up, YouTube? This is Sean Fry, Sly88 Fry here. So, thank you so much for the surge of subscribers and views during these past few months of uploading Johnny Depp related shorts. So, as the result, let's finally do a binge of Johnny Depp film reviews, and we are starting with Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. The first of the Pirates of the Caribbean films, the first Johnny Depp film that I recall seeing, as I was 15 years old when that came out and didn't see much of what he did in the 90s. My wife actually saw more of his 90s films and introduced me to them over the past few months. So I was a young teenager when this film first came out in 2003. I remember seeing the trailer beforehand when I went to see a different movie in theaters like a year or two before, and I honestly did not know what to think about this movie. I knew it would be a really cool, well, I mean, I didn't know how good it would turn out to be, but I knew it would be a film about pirates, obviously, and a film about adventure. The fact I saw that trailer, which didn't even reveal much, it just mostly showed a really cool sword effect and title and stuff, because it was just like the first ever trailer, so there was nothing really known about it yet. It kept me wondering, it kept me guessing. It was quite an intriguing time for me. I'm already well aware that Pirates of the Caribbean, the films, are actually based off of a ride at Disneyland or Disney World, depending on if you're in California or Florida. I first heard about Pirates of the Caribbean thanks to a PlayStation 1 game I played in the 90s that I rented from Hollywood Video. I forget what it was called, but it was a racing game that involved playing as various Disney characters or made-up characters as well, racing on various Disney World attractions. And sometime later, I actually had been to Disneyland and been on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, which I don't remember every detail because it was so long ago, but it was, from what I remember, pretty fascinating. So when I first saw this film in theaters, how would I describe that experience? Well, I'll try to describe it as much as I can remember it since it was so long ago, while also trying my best to make the best possible review of the film I could possibly do. I've definitely seen the movie many times since then, whether it's on DVD or more recently on Disney Plus, of course. Yeah, I definitely have a lot to say, and I'm sure many of you watching have seen this movie many times, so I hope I find a way to get this review to stand out among the rest. When I first went to see this movie in theaters, I really did not know what to expect. I had some pretty high hopes for sure. Did those high hopes get rewarded? Let's find out. So we start off this film seeing a young Elizabeth Swann, and she's on a Royal Navy ship with her father, Governor Weatherby Swann, and with Lieutenant James Norrington. They find a wrecked ship, and there's a boy on the ship who survived, a young Will Turner. Elizabeth finds a curious medallion on that boy. I think in a way to try to protect him, she takes the medallion from him since it seems pirate-like. Joshua Gibbs is part of the crew of this Royal Navy ship and tells Elizabeth Swann to stop singing that pirate song, which, by the way, is a reference to the ride as you hear that song when you go on the ride at Disneyland or Disney World, whichever one. Joshua Gibbs may seem minor here, but he'll be important later. And in a really neat transition, we go forward in time to an adult Elizabeth Swann, played by Keira Knightley, who was in Bend It Like Beckham before this film. Funny film, I actually would recommend it, by the way. To be honest, there really isn't much to say about this scene. Ms. Swan has to dress up for a big fancy event and is being required to wear a corset, and she finds it to be too tight and uncomfortable, the price of being the daughter of the governor. Elizabeth does reference this much later in the film, too. You also get to see Will Turner as an adult now, played by Orlando Bloom, who already made a big name for himself as Legolas in the Lord of the Rings films. James Norrington, now a Commodore, proposes to Elizabeth Swann, and because she was too uncomfortable in such a tight corset, she ends up falling backwards and accidentally falling off into the ocean. Obviously, Norrington thinks she fainted because of the proposal, but I'm pretty sure everyone who watched this film knew otherwise. Meanwhile, we are introduced to the main character of this film and entire franchise. Quite a way to introduce him. You clearly see this pirate being completely down on his luck. Hey, look at that handsome man. Everything just looks so bad for him, but he finds some way to make it work. He is confronted by some redcoats. Honestly, these two British soldiers are so much fun to watch and listen to. Jack Sparrow.
Captain Jack Sparrow, if you please.
Sorry, I mean Captain Jack Sparrow. Tells them of the Black Pearl. And then the two redcoats get into an argument. As they are distracted, Jack Sparrow...
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh, sorry. Again, I mean Captain Jack Sparrow makes a run for it to get a ship. And what's really amazing about this character is not only one of the greatest actors in our generation is playing him so well, but he just has this way about him. He gives off the impression that he is incompetent, but he is in fact really brilliant and has a way with words that can inspire or confuse, and just listening to him speak is hilarious and sometimes really mesmerizing. Captain Jack Sparrow witnesses Elizabeth falling into the sea and rescues her. It gets a little awkward as he has to take off her corset, making it easier to save her. But ultimately he shows he isn't some scumbag pirate like the redcoats seem to generalize all pirates to be. It's a good way to show there is a lot more to this man than just being a pirate. Commodore Norrington, as well as many other redcoats, point their guns at Captain Jack Sparrow. Norrington clearly has no respect for him. Captain Jack Sparrow holds Elizabeth Swann hostage in a great use of leverage. Norrington is stunned. The woman he just proposed to in a life-threatening situation right in front of his eyes. Governor Weatherby urges all soldiers to stand down. It is quite a sight to see Captain Jack Sparrow escape them all. He hides at the blacksmith. Will Turner sees him and apprehends him. They get into a serious sword fight. It starts off casual as Jack tests Will Turner to see what he is capable of. He knows not to underestimate him, and the sword fight gets really epic as they both use their surroundings in creative ways. Captain Jack Sparrow points his pistol at Will Turner, but tells him to move out of the way. Will Turner stands his ground as Captain Jack Sparrow really doesn't want to shoot him. He is saving his one bullet for someone else. You can see the confusion on Will Turner's face here.
Please move.
No! I cannot just step aside and let you escape.
This shot is not meant for you.
And unfortunately, Norrington doesn't even give Will any credit for stopping Captain Jack Sparrow because the drunk master blacksmith happened to wake up at the right time and knocked him out with a beer bottle. Poor Will Turner. Jack is in prison now. The Black Pearl
He said it!
blasts at Port Royal, and the crew invades and pillages and plunders. You know, pirate stuff. They leave Captain Jack Sparrow to die in his prison cell after they got what they wanted. They kidnapped Elizabeth Swann after they see that skull medallion on her. Meanwhile, on the Black Pearl, we are finally introduced to the main antagonist of this movie, Captain Barbosa, portrayed by Geoffrey Rush, who was much more well known in the UK, but still known internationally for his role in Shakespeare in Love. I think it's safe to say that his role as Captain Barbosa was indeed his breakout role. I mean, he seriously has the greatest pirate accent I have ever heard in all of cinema.
Very well, you hand it over and we'll put your town to our rudder and ne'er return.
You got to respect that. Hey, I tried a pirate accent of my own, in my own 2 short video series called Unemployed Pirates.
Are you alright?
Where are we?
Where are we? I just woke up on Nye Beach.
It seems like our ship has crashed into these rocks.
We need thy booty to repair thy ship. So where is thy ship?
Yeah, I know. Shameless plug. Check it out when you can. Anyways, there is some great dialogue here, and to be honest, I've learned back then some ways of speaking that I can easily contradict someone with by saying, oh, I didn't specify that, or oh, you didn't specifically say to do that, you just said to do something in general, thanks to how Barbosa speaks.
First, your return to shore was not part of our negotiations nor our agreement, so I must do nothing. And secondly, you must be a pirate for the Pirate's Code to apply, and you're not. And thirdly, the code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules. Welcome aboard the Black Pearl.
His way of using technicalities against people is honestly extremely brilliant. Will Turner, who honestly is lucky to be alive, goes to confront Captain Jack Sparrow in his prison cell to question him so he can understand more about the Black Pearl and its crew. Will built these prison cells, so he knows exactly how to get Jack out. They both escape and have to commandeer the Dauntless. The Redcoats give chase, and here comes the most well-known trailer moment.
Here they come.
This next scene is so awesome and quite frankly was so unexpected the first time watching this back in theaters. Commodore Norrington gets the Interceptor to catch up to the Dauntless and sends his troops to capture Jack and Will and take back the Dauntless. But instead, after all the troops board the Dauntless, these two sneak their way onto the Interceptor and take it away. And it's the fastest ship in the fleet, so no remaining British vessels could catch up to it. Norrington wants to at least get in range to fire at the Interceptor.
We ought to fire on our own ships, huh?
I'd rather see her at the bottom of the ocean than in the hands of a pirate.
But it turns out Jack had this all planned out and disabled the cannons.
Commodore! He's disabled the rudder chain, sir. Abandon ship! That's got to be the best pirate I've ever seen.
So it would seem.
Jack and Will escape without taking any damage. After they escape, Jack tells Will about his father, also named William Turner, but most people call him Bootstrap Bill. Will cannot accept that Jack is telling him that his father was a pirate. They also argue over their duel back at the blacksmith, all for Captain Jack Sparrow to point out how great of a motivation it is not to fight fair.
You didn't beat me. You ignored the rules of engagement. In a fair fight, I'd kill you.
That's not much incentive for me to fight fair then, is it?
Very good point. Why fight fair if your life is on the line? There is hesitation by Will Turner because he was raised to hate pirates, but realizes through a very logical statement and question by Jack that, well, he's going to have to go with him if he wants to save Elizabeth.
Can you sail under the command of a pirate? Or can you not?
Tortuga.
Tortuga.
We get to know more about merchants and pirates and other, well, unorthodox people as we see Jack and Will at some kind of pirate bay or merchant alley of some description. It is here when Jack tries to hire a crew. Will has difficulty adapting to this atmosphere and gets into trouble, at least at first. We see Joshua Gibbs, who is a pirate now, who, hey, he was with the Brits back when Elizabeth and Will were children, and Norrington was still a lieutenant. It turns out this man is a pirate after all. Sparrow talks to Gibbs about how he can convince Barbosa to give back his ship, the Black Pearl. And yes, that ship belonged to Jack before Barbosa started a mutiny. Jack intends to use Will Turner as leverage, as he is the biological son of Bootstrap Bill, and only their bloodline would free Barbosa and his crew from their curse. So from here, we might as well transition back to the Black Pearl, where Barbosa and his crew are holding Elizabeth captive. The one who they think is part of the Turner bloodline, thanks to what Elizabeth said earlier.
Elizabeth Turner.
I'm sure Elizabeth is at least 18 years old, but the actress Keira Knightley was 17 at the time this was being filmed. Yeah, pretty awkward to hear these lines after you know that.
He said you'd say that. He also said if that be the case, you'll be done in with the crew, and you'll be naked. Fine.
Her parents actually had to be present in order for her scenes to be filmed. I wonder if at any point they were extras? Let's just move on to what truly is important here. Barbosa explains the curse to Elizabeth. Hey, they are on the Black Pearl, and they are cursed. Oh, that's where the title comes from.
He said it! He said it!
Elizabeth tries to make a run for it after finding she can't even kill Barbosa, and we now get to see the entire crew for what they really look like under the moonlight. For they are cursed. The following day, Jack tries to assemble a full crew with the help of his first mate, Gibbs. Unfortunately, these are definitely oddballs, but don't judge a book by its cover. They're all capable, including someone who you must be sure not to misjudge because of his size. Hey look, it's Gamora! But in all seriousness, yes, this is indeed Zoe Saldana, who was really an unknown at the time. But I think this film helped push her career forward. She was in Drumline before this film, which I remember that film, but do you? Anyways, this was a great way to help her career forward before portraying Uhura in the new Star Trek films, and then of course Gamora in the MCU. Barbosa brings his crew and Elizabeth to that cave he mentioned to her earlier in hopes of breaking the curse. With her and that last medallion, they believe they will finally be free. With the help of his crew, Jack and Will also arrive at that cave. Oh yeah, it's going to get crazy. Barbosa thinks the curse is over now that he spilled Elizabeth's blood on that last medallion and dropped it in the chest, but the entire crew don't feel any different. Apparently they're still cursed. Elizabeth would then tell Barbosa that her last name was actually Swan, not Turner. Barbosa and his entire crew get into huge arguments, and just before one of the crew suggested to spill all her blood, the real Turner, Will, rescues Elizabeth while the entire crew is arguing, and somehow all of them didn't notice. That's a lot of people. Captain Jack Sparrow also arrives in the cave, although he was actually knocked out by Will Turner earlier, which is why the plan didn't go his way. And he gets captured by Barbosa's crew, but then struggles to say,
That's the one. Parlay. 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 Damn, that's whatever man they thought of parlay.
which Elizabeth had no problem saying earlier. Barbosa is so shocked to see Captain Jack Sparrow. After he mutinied against Jack, he left him on a deserted island with just a pistol with only one shot on it. Jack also convinces Barbosa not to kill him because he knows whose blood they need to be freed of the curse.
You know whose blood we need.
I know whose blood you need.
Meanwhile, on the Interceptor, Will tends to Elizabeth's cut. Elizabeth gives Will back his medallion he last had when he was a kid. Will rightfully questions why Elizabeth took the medallion, and she gives a really good answer.
Because I was afraid that you were a pirate. That would have been awful.
It wasn't your blood they needed. It was my father's blood. My blood.
The Black Pearl gives chase to the Interceptor. Elizabeth Swann tells Anna Maria the Interceptor is the fastest ship in the fleet, but is shot down with the perfect contradiction.
This is the fastest ship in the Caribbean. You can tell them that after they've caught us.
Gibbs and crew try to get away from the Black Pearl by throwing many belongings overboard to lighten the weight of the ship, but ultimately Barbosa catches up. After convincing from Will Turner, they take a stand against the Black Pearl, and Sparrow is not happy to see his ship being shot at, especially while imprisoned on it. All the cannonballs on the Interceptor were thrown out, so they are shooting at the Black Pearl with whatever is left. It's not doing much damage. Ultimately, Barbosa wins and the Interceptor is destroyed. Will Turner was looking for his medallion back on the Interceptor last we saw him, but back on the Black Pearl, we see Will climb up. Will Turner knows that Barbosa and his crew need his blood and that last medallion to be freed of their curse. He is in the perfect position to tell them exactly what he wants them to do, and they have to obey. Barbosa does indeed follow through with freeing Elizabeth and not harming the crew. Unfortunately, Barbosa explains technicalities to Will like he did to Elizabeth earlier, explaining that
Don't dare impugn me honor, boy. I agreed she'd go free, but it was you who failed to specify when or where.
Jack and Elizabeth are dropped off on the same island he was left at before, and once again with the same pistol that has just one shot. Elizabeth is unhappy with the negative, pessimistic attitude of Captain Jack Sparrow and even questions him as to how he got off this island. And basically the reason was the timing was just right previously, and he wasn't even there for long at all.
How did you escape last time?
Last time, I was here a grand total of 3 days, all right.
The rum runners used this island as a cache. Came by and I was able to barter passage off. The looks of things, they've long been out of business.
Elizabeth, however, does have a plan. After they both have some rum, although Ms. Swan is definitely holding out, well, the following morning she burns up all the rum, and we get one of the most famous lines in all of Pirates of the Caribbean films, maybe one of the most famous lines of all time.
But why is the rum gone?
The plan works since Commodore Norrington and Governor Weatherby Swan are indeed looking for Elizabeth Swan, and the explosions attract the attention of their ship.
There'll be no living with her after this.
Whoa, look, I grew facial hair so quickly. And I changed search. Look at that. I could just do it at command. But in all seriousness, let's continue with this review. After some arguments, Elizabeth is able to convince the Commodore to go after the Black Pearl. Even her father is surprised by what she just said.
Commodore, I beg you, please do this. For me. As a wedding gift.
Elizabeth, are you accepting the Commodore's proposal?
I am.
Wedding. I love weddings. Drinks all around.
Back on the Black Pearl, Will Turner asks Pintel and Rigetti if they knew his father, Bootstrap Bill. They explain to him what they did to him after he made it clear how horrible the mutiny against Captain Jack Sparrow was, saying they deserved to be cursed. Bootstrap gave Will his medallion, and Barbosa and crew tied Bootstrap onto a cannon to sink him to the bottom of the ocean. I think the reason why that didn't affect Will Turner was probably because he didn't take the medallion himself. After Barbosa gets his crew to the same cave they brought Elizabeth to before, but this time they have the right person to get rid of their curse. Will Turner is with them. However, Captain Jack Sparrow forms a strategy to show up unexpected and warn Barbosa of the Royal Navy waiting just outside. Barbosa knows his crew will die if they get rid of the curse and then face them. They must remain cursed at least a little longer to remain immortal for now. He sends his crew to walk at the bottom of the ocean to climb aboard the Dauntless in a huge surprise. Jack didn't account for this, as he thought they would go after the Brits in boats. But one other thing. Poor Pintel and Rigetti. Captain Jack Sparrow, through very thoughtful phrasing, makes everything seem completely okay and actually catches Barbosa off guard. He frees Will Turner, and Jack fights Barbosa while Will fights some of the remaining crew that are still in the cave. Back on the Dauntless, things are not looking good, and Commodore Norrington is forced to bring his boats back to the ship to defend it. Meanwhile, on the Black Pearl, Gibbs and crew break free and find clever ways to force Barbosa's remaining crew off the ship, including Jack the Monkey. Elizabeth Swan ends up rowing to the cave by herself as the crew decides they have the Black Pearl, they don't need to save Sparrow. Elizabeth joins with Will in their fight in the cave. Captain Jack Sparrow impales Barbosa, but of course it is ineffective. Barbosa impales Jack, all to find out that he pulled a fast one and grabbed one of the medallions and now has the same curse and can't die.
I couldn't resist, mate.
As Gibbs and crew flee the whole scene with the Black Pearl, there is nothing Barbosa's crew can do about it, since they are busy fighting the Brits on the Dauntless. I have to talk about this amazing scene with Governor Swan. He is scared and cowering, but look at this. Once they grab his wig, he isn't messing around. Shit's about to go down. He fights back. It's awesome. The hand of this undead pirate is cut off, and he smacks the hell out of that hand and locks it in the drawer. Back in the cave, Jack throws that medallion to Will as he makes his way back to the chest of medallions. Barbosa points his gun at Elizabeth, ready to fire and break Will's heart, but instead Barbosa is shot. Captain Jack Sparrow, after all this time, fires the one bullet from his gun straight into Barbosa's heart. It looks like as if Jack wasted his shot, but
He didn't waste it.
I feel cold.
the curse is over. It is such a dramatic death for Barbosa. Captain Jack Sparrow got his revenge. Back on the Dauntless, one of Barbosa's crew is killed. Actually dead, not immortal. The moon is out, but they are flesh and blood, not skeletons. Completely outnumbered by the Brits, these pirates know they have lost. They surrender, and in epic fashion, Commodore Norrington announces,
The ship is ours, gentlemen.
the crew celebrates, and Governor Swan checks on the hand in the drawer since it stopped shaking, and while we don't see it, I think we all know that it is now a full-on human hand, so I completely understand why Weatherby would react this way. But then he joins in on the celebration with the rest of the crew, even though he was hiding the whole time. The very next day, despite the fact that it really was because of Jack and his strategy that the Royal Navy was victorious, they still want to execute him for piracy. Elizabeth knows it's wrong. And honestly, it does seem like her father doesn't agree with it either, but explains that it is the law. Will Turner has a plan to free Jack, but knows it's a huge sacrifice, as he would be committing treason, so he makes sure to finally tell Elizabeth,
Elizabeth, I should have told you every day from the moment I met you. I love you.
Elizabeth then sees that parrot from Gibbs' crew. Whoa, and a call back to the beginning. Elizabeth falls down saying,
I can't breathe.
but it was all a ruse this time, a way to distract Commodore Norrington. This rescue plan is epic, and it works. The Brits manage to stop Jack in his tracks, but Will stands between Norrington and Jack. Then Elizabeth stands beside Will. Commodore Norrington is stunned. Governor Weatherby orders the Redcoats to lower their weapons. I mean, come on, it's his daughter. So clearly, Elizabeth lied to the Commodore earlier, as she actually loves Will Turner. But let's be honest, Norrington was already a grown-up when we first saw Elizabeth as a child. This could be seen as grooming. He loved her now that she's an adult, but he knew her when she was a child. However, you should also consider when this movie is taking place. It was a different time centuries ago. I'm not saying that makes it okay, I'm just saying the facts. It's not okay. And I guess technically it isn't pedophile.
Whoever came up with this is an asshole! Whoever came up with this is an asshole! Ass! Hole? Asshole! Television makes a lot of sense.
But seriously, it's good for Elizabeth to find someone her age who she definitely has a lot more interest in. Captain Jack Sparrow notices the parrot from the crew of the Black Pearl. He talks his way towards the cliff and makes his escape to get back together with his crew. Commodore Norrington is speechless. He has so much to process in such a short amount of time. Governor Weatherby Swan speaks and makes a wonderful quote.
Course demands an act of piracy. Piracy itself can be the right course.
The Commodore agrees. He also gives recognition to who it's due. He knows damn well that Will forged the sword, not the drunken head blacksmith. He also, in this beautiful line, is showing his approval for Will to Elizabeth.
This is a beautiful sword. I would expect the man who made it to show the same care and devotion in every aspect of his life.
Thank you.
Weatherby seems hesitant about Elizabeth's choice of love, but ultimately approves. Jack climbs aboard the Black Pearl. Gibbs convinced the crew to change their minds and rescue their captain. Jack got his ship back. A beautiful way to end the movie.
And really bad eggs. Drink up, me hearties, yo ho.
Hey, there is a secret scene at the end of this movie. It's Jack the monkey. He survived and got away. Oh. He got cursed again. I guess he would rather stay immortal, even if he can't feel like the living can feel. So to summarize, I think this is a really fun, action-packed film with great characters and great acting. Well, for the most part. What's with that underbite? So overkill. Anyways, the movie as a whole is so well done that while not the worst acting I've seen, not great either, Keira Knightley doesn't take anything away from it. In a lot of cases, she does fine anyway. Of course, Orlando Bloom is brilliant as Will Turner. His accent does sort of make me think of Legolas, but honestly, it's Orlando Bloom playing both roles, and honestly, it's awesome he got to play such awesome characters. Jeffrey Rush is such an incredible pirate. I fucking love his pirate accent. Seriously, it is so perfect.
What the sea urchin is that? R, that'd be a car.
It's moving slowly. Could that be the problem?
That's not good.
It's just a car.
Much better than my attempts. Oh, sorry, how does that keep showing up? I'm still learning my new free editing software, Kdenlive. I didn't put those there. I swear, Kdenlive has a mind of its own. But hey, check out my comedy compilation on this card up here. You'll have a blast. It's about the length of a movie to see all of them. And you'll eventually see both of my Unemployed Pirates videos in the middle of the compilation. And perhaps I'll upload each of these comedy videos in their own separate videos on this channel, like I once did on a discontinued secondary channel that you don't need to bother with. Oh, but of course, finish watching my review of Pirates first. Everyone played their part well. Mostly. But
So,
obviously,
Kevin Corey,
the man who truly made this movie and franchise legendary, the one and only, and well, the only thing that has made my channel relevant at all lately, Johnny Depp. He is the embodiment of Captain Jack Sparrow. Nobody could ever compare to him in this movie. I mean, except maybe Barbosa. But Jeffrey Rush is amazing. This role was made for Johnny Depp. We are very fortunate that the legendary Robert De Niro turned down the role. Don't get me wrong, he is unquestionably a Hollywood legend, but it just wouldn't be the same without Johnny Depp. Shame on you, Disney, for firing him over false accusations. How dare you attempt to make a sixth Pirates of the Caribbean film without Johnny Depp? I guarantee you it's going to bomb so hard.
You stupid.
Now, when we get to the point where I review the fifth movie, I'll explain just by showing you my review, and hopefully you've seen the movie before you watch my review, that is. Easy access on Disney Plus, of course. Ironically mentioning that now that I shamed Disney. But anyways, With the way the fifth movie ended, there isn't really anything to go off of for the sixth movie. I'll just say that. But like I said, we'll get to that later when I get down to it on my long marathon of reviews of Johnny Depp films. Holy crap, I went off on a tangent here. That said, the characters in this film are memorable and well cast. The storyline is honestly unbelievable. All of these things coming together so perfectly is incredibly unlikely, but it's just so well written and so well put together. Honestly, somehow I literally just thought about how impossible this would all be just as I was typing my script, actually. It's not something you think about because you're enjoying the film too much to care. So when I first saw this movie in theaters back as a teenager in 2003, it was an incredible experience. I remember going in not having any idea what to expect. I knew about the ride at Disneyland, but had no idea how they would translate that into a film. Seeing this movie for the first time was an amazing experience. You are surprised at every turn. Nowadays, I know what is going to happen, yet still I am excited to see it and still stunned when Jack kills Barbosa. It's just so well shot, no pun intended, so perfectly edited, just incredible action all over. The excitement of the Royal Navy defeating once immortal pirates, just so beautifully done, and a perfect way to end the film to imply there could be more to come, but still the film can stand on its own. It's that good. Every character is likable, but at the same time, all of them are flawed. Captain Jack Sparrow is incredibly brilliant with his words and his planning, but as a big-time alcoholic and clearly with how he behaves at this point in his life, he is still in some way affected by a troubled past. Will Turner had an extreme prejudice against pirates at an early age and continued to have this prejudice into adulthood, but it was clearly something he learned while living at this British port town under leadership that have all learned to hate pirates no matter who and teach that to future generations. Will Turner at first couldn't accept that his father was a pirate, but learns to trust the word of Captain Jack Sparrow despite his own assumptions about him. Elizabeth Swann ultimately wants to do the right thing. She grew up in royalty in a way. I mean, she isn't the daughter of the king or queen, but as daughter of Governor Weatherby Swann, it's pretty much royalty, especially since he rules Port Royal and likely much of the surrounding area. Despite her upbringing, although she may fear pirates, she doesn't seem to hate them. She does see pirates in a negative light at times, but ultimately would rather judge someone based on their character, not based on class or profession or upbringing. Commodore Norrington is extremely prejudiced against pirates. He had to have been taught that, as this stance against pirates most likely had been taught to many generations of Brits. But Norrington does seem to show continued prejudice against pirates, even against Captain Jack Sparrow, at a time he wants to help him. Ultimately, in the end, though, he does come through and just accepts that Jack did an amazing deed for the Royal Navy and lets him go. He learns that sometimes you have to trust somebody you normally wouldn't trust based on their class or profession and prejudicial ways you've been taught your whole life. But nevertheless, sometimes you have to trust somebody despite your own misconceptions and accept that ultimately you achieved your goal with their help. This is especially thanks to Governor Weatherby when he said,
Perhaps on the rare occasion pursuing the right course demands an act of piracy. Piracy itself can be the right course.
And Governor Weatherby lives by many old traditions, even if he may not exactly agree with them. However, despite his own issues with Will Turner, he accepts him because he ultimately wants his daughter to be happy. Barbosa is evil through and through. However, he is certainly not one-dimensional. His way with words and terms is quite clever. I could totally see this guy working for the IRS with how much he loves technicalities, and I do mean that in a positive way for his character. He abides by parley. However, he also understands that the pirates' code isn't flat out rules and really are just guidelines. However, his interpretation of the code is what also leads to him leading the crew to a mutiny against Captain Jack Sparrow in the first place, and putting him in the predicament he would start this movie out in. His mutiny ultimately did eventually lead to him being killed by the very man he overthrew. Another thing is, he paid so much attention to him, and when he saw Elizabeth run in the cave, he tried to pull a cheap shot by pointing his gun at her. He forgot about Will Turner. The side characters are a lot of fun and add great comic relief, especially during some very serious moments. This film came out in the early 2000s, and although CGI had improved a lot at the time compared to where it was in the 1990s, CGI has gotten considerably a lot more realistic nowadays when done by big name studios that really try. However, the CGI looks honestly pretty amazing in this film. It's aged really well. You can't say that about a lot of films of the time. Yeah, that film came out around the same era. Awful CGI. Heck, there are some films released today that you can easily say have absolutely atrocious CGI compared to this nearly 20-year-old classic. So with all the praise I'm giving this film, are there any flaws? Yes, of course. What are they? I don't know. Maybe the fact that Will Turner has a tattoo from when his actor Orlando Bloom finished shooting the Lord of the Rings movies. All three movies were shot around the same time, being released at least 1 year apart each. Or also, from the same scene, Will Turner has a full mustache and goatee despite just earlier in the same day, not much time before, he had very little facial hair. Or this film crew member in a white tee and cowboy hat chilling in the background on the Black Pearl at the end. But seriously, these aren't flaws in the movie. They are just accidental mistakes and inconsistencies done during filming and not noticed by the editors or couldn't be fixed by them. They have nothing to do with the plot of the film, so obviously they should have absolutely no effect on how the film is received critically. How about plot holes? Well, according to this thread on MovieMistakes.com, there are just 2 plot holes, although there are responses contradicting these supposed plot holes to prove they really aren't an issue. One could argue that Elizabeth should have seen the crew as skeletons already, but perhaps the clouds just blocked the moon completely and couldn't see them. And who knows, maybe she was already on the Black Pearl before those 2 crew members revealed their skeletal curse to Captain Jack Sparrow. Look, I'm kind of drawing a blank here. Oh, wait. Thank you, pitch meeting.
Jack's gonna go to leave, but Will's gonna throw a sword into the door and lock him in the workshop with them. Why? To kill him, because he frickin' hates pirates. He doesn't know that he kind of is one. Why didn't he throw his sword at Jack then? Well, that'd be pretty messed up. You can't get somebody when their back is turned, I guess.
If Will Turner hates pirates so much, why didn't he throw his sword directly into Jack's back at the blacksmith?
So Will throws an axe at one of them, gets him right in the back. Wait, if he throws an axe at this guy's back, why didn't he throw that sword at Jack? Well, this other pirate's not a main character, so...
Oh, right. It's not a flaw at all, since he isn't allowed to kill the main character. Of course. He's just... Let's just say he isn't an accurate thrower with the sword, but luckily made a perfect throw with the axe later. There we go. No flaws at all. Oh, wait. Will perfectly throws a sword right where Jack will drop when hung at the end. I think Will has this way of bolstering Jack's plot armor. However, yeah, there is a problem. These cursed pirates clearly can feel, despite the fact that Barbosa said they can't. Not to mention, they have fresh food on the Black Pearl despite the fact Barbosa and crew can't eat. Also, this is the goddamn Royal Navy. They would be so irresponsible to have their entire crew leave a ship to board another to just capture 2 people? So how would I rate this film? Well, honestly, it's not something I've thought about until typing this review. When it comes to my favorite movies of all time, for some reason I never think about this one. But I realized that I should. I've always loved this movie ever since I first saw it in theaters when I was a teenager. Yeah, there indeed are some flaws, but no movie is perfect. My favorite movie of all time, The Dark Knight, I gave a perfect 10 in from an old review of mine 10 years ago from a discontinued secondary channel. But that movie does have flaws too. That said, although I realize now that Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl is among my top 10 favorite films ever made, I am giving it a near perfect score of 9.9 out of 10. Stay tuned for some more Johnny Depp movie reviews, as well as some other movie reviews I have planned. Last year I reviewed the Sonic movie, so I feel pretty obligated to review the second Sonic movie. You're always free to subscribe if you haven't already, and please do click that bell icon to add me to notifications. I am literally a one-man crew. I don't have the leadership skills and popularity of Captain Jack Sparrow, so since I am making these reviews entirely by myself, typing, recording, downloading clips, speaking, reading, watching clips to look back at stuff, editing. Oh yeah, and again, editing. But did I say editing? Yes, editing. Not to mention, I am without my Premiere Pro CS6, which I bought 10 years ago. But because Adobe is evil, and they decided to take away all of my editing software I bought from them because it isn't the newest version, I am having to learn a new free editing software called Kdenlive, which works and has some great things that I expect to be able to do on it, but is also flawed and definitely a steep learning curve. So please click that bell icon to add me notifications so you'll know when my next review comes. I'm still a small channel and likely won't have a team to help make my videos faster. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of The Curse of the Black Pearl. Check out what I put on my list of Johnny Depp movies I plan to review so far. Yes, it is in this order, at least for now. Stay tuned, and thank you.